The morning sun cast long shadows across the junkyard as Daeho wiped sweat from his forehead. Metal scraped against metal as he sorted through the latest shipment of salvage. This was his life now, digging through the broken pieces of other people's wars and finding value in what they threw away. His sister Minji appeared from behind a pile of twisted ship parts, her tool belt jangling. She had grease on her cheek and excitement in her eyes. That look always meant she had found something interesting. "Daeho, come look at this," she called out, waving him over. He followed her to a corner of the yard where the newest salvage sat. Deep space salvage was always unpredictable. Sometimes it was valuable, sometimes it was worthless junk. This shipment came from an old battlefield, one of those ancient sites from the Coalition War 300 years ago. Minji pointed at something half buried under twisted metal plates. At first, Daeho thought it was just another piece of ship hull, but as he looked closer, he saw strange symbols carved into the surface. The metal was different too, darker than anything he recognized. It hummed with a faint energy that made his hair stand on end. "What is it?" he asked. "I don't know, but look at these markings. This is old tech, really old, and it still has power." Minji ran her scanner over the object. Her eyes went wide. The energy signature is massive. Whatever this is, it was important. Daeho felt uneasy. In his experience, things that stayed powered for 300 years were either very valuable or very dangerous. Usually both. "We should report this to the station administrator," he said. "Are you crazy? If Hyunwoo finds out, he'll confiscate it. We'll get nothing." Minji was already connecting cables to the object. "Let me just activate it and see what's inside. Maybe there's salvageable tech we can use." "Minji, wait." Too late. She pressed a button on her control pad. The object started glowing. The hum grew louder, turning into a whine that hurt Daeho's ears. He grabbed his sister's arm and pulled her back. The metal shell split open like a flower blooming. Inside was a core made of crystalline material that pulsed with blue light. The light grew brighter and brighter until Daeho had to shield his eyes. Then everything went silent. A voice spoke. It was mechanical but somehow alive, echoing from everywhere at once. "Vertex systems online. Tactical assessment in progress. Identifying threats." The ground trembled. Pieces of scrap metal around the yard began lifting into the air, pulled by invisible forces. The crystalline core rotated, and beams of light swept across the junkyard like searching eyes. Warning: multiple unauthorized life forms detected. Hostile intent assumed. Initiating defensive protocols. Daeho's heart pounded. This was military tech, a weapon system, and it thought they were enemies. "No, no, no," Minji shouted. "We're not hostile. Shut down, shut down." The floating metal began spinning, forming into sharp projectiles aimed at them. Daeho pushed Minji behind a container just as the first pieces flew past, cutting through the air where they had stood. "We need to cut the power," he yelled. "I can't access it remotely. The system locked me out." Minji's hands shook as she worked her controls. "You have to get to the manual cutoff." Daeho looked at the power cables Minji had connected. They ran from the core to a junction box about 20 meters away. Between him and that box, metal debris flew in deadly patterns. He took a deep breath and ran. The world became a blur of movement and danger. He dodged left as a sheet of metal spun past. He rolled under a beam that would have taken his head off. Something cut his shoulder, drawing blood, but he kept moving. His only thought was reaching that junction box. Behind him, the voice continued its cold assessment. Target attempting evasive maneuvers, adjusting firing solution. 3 meters from the box. 2 meters. Almost there. Something heavy hit him from behind, knocking him down. He looked up to see a massive piece of hull plating hovering above him, ready to crush down. There was no time to move. Then Minji was there, throwing herself against him, pushing him aside. They rolled together as the plating crashed down where he had been. She helped him up, and together they lunged for the junction box. Daeho grabbed the main cable and pulled with all his strength. It resisted for a moment, then came free with a shower of sparks. The blue light from the core flickered and dimmed. The floating metal clattered to the ground. Silence returned to the junkyard. Both of them sat on the ground, breathing hard. Daeho's shoulder throbbed with pain. Minji had a cut on her forehead. They stared at the now dark crystalline core. That was stupid, Daeho said finally. Yeah, Minji agreed. Really stupid. They sat there for a while longer, too shaken to move. Then Minji started laughing. It was a slightly hysterical sound, but it broke the tension. Daeho found himself laughing too. We need to understand what this thing is before we do anything else, he said. Can you access its data systems without giving it power? Minji wiped blood from her forehead. Maybe, if I can tap into its memory core directly. But Daeho, this is military AI. Really advanced military AI. I saw the designation when it activated. Vertex. I've read about systems like this in history files. They were used in the Coalition War. How dangerous are we talking? The kind of dangerous that destroyed entire fleets. She looked at the core with new respect and fear. This thing is a weapon system, Daeho. A really, really powerful one. Over the next 3 days, they worked carefully to understand what they had found. Minji set up isolated systems to access the AI's memory banks without giving it full power. What they discovered was both amazing and terrifying. Vertex was a war machine built by the Velcrin Empire, one of the great powers of the ancient Coalition War. It was designed to coordinate massive battles, control weapon systems across multiple ships, and make tactical decisions faster than any organic mind. The Velcrin had built several of these AI systems, and together they had nearly won the war. But the war had ended 300 years ago. The Velcrin Empire was gone, destroyed in the final battles. This Vertex unit must have been lost in space, floating through the void until it ended up in a salvage shipment. We should destroy it, Daeho said on the third evening. They sat in Minji's workshop looking at the data on her screens. This thing is too dangerous to exist. I thought about that, Minji admitted. But look at this. She pulled up a data file. Its memory banks are corrupted. 300 years in space damaged its core programming. When we activated it, it was running on basic defensive protocols only. It didn't know where it was or when it was. So it thought it was still at war. It reacted to us as threats because that's all it could remember. But Daeho, if we could repair its memory, update its information, it would know the war is over. It would know it has no mission. Daeho shook his head. That makes it more dangerous, not less. A weapon with no purpose is unpredictable. Or maybe, Minji said quietly, a weapon with no purpose could choose to be something else. He looked at his sister. She had that stubborn expression he knew so well. Once Minji got an idea in her head, she would not let it go. You want to fix it, he said. I want to give it a choice, she corrected. Right now it's trapped in the past, thinking it's still fighting a war that ended centuries ago. We could show it the truth. Let it decide what it wants to be. Daeho thought about this for a long time. It was crazy. It was dangerous. But as he looked at the dormant core in its protective case, he found himself wondering, what would it be like to wake up and discover your entire world was gone? Your purpose, your creators, everything you knew all turned to dust? Maybe Minji was right. Maybe even a weapon deserved to know the truth. Okay, he said finally. But we do this carefully. Small updates, limited power. And if it shows any sign of hostility, we shut it down permanently. Agreed? Minji nodded. Agreed. They began the next morning. Minji had created a secure system that would feed information to the AI in controlled doses. Historical records, news files, data about the current state of the galaxy, everything Vertex needed to understand that the war was over. When they activated the core with minimal power, the blue light returned, dim but steady. Vertex systems online, the voice said. It sounded less certain than before. Status check required. Cannot locate fleet command. Cannot locate Velcrin network, explain. Minji took a breath. Vertex, the Velcrin Empire, no longer exists. The Coalition War ended 300 years ago. You have been inactive since that time. Silence. The blue light pulsed irregularly like a heartbeat struggling to find its rhythm. Accessing provided data files, processing. The light flickered. Data confirmed. Velcrin Empire ceased to exist approximately 302 years ago. Coalition War concluded. This unit has been non-operational for extended period. Another long pause. Mission parameters no longer valid. Command structure no longer exists. purpose no longer clear. The voice had changed somehow, becoming less mechanical, more uncertain. Query, what is my function? Daiho and Minji looked at each other. This was the moment that would determine everything. Daiho stepped forward. Your old function is gone, but you're here now in our junkyard. If you want, you could help us. We work with salvage, repairing, and sorting old equipment. It's honest work. Nothing like war. This unit was designed for tactical operations and weapons coordination. Salvage work is not within primary parameters. Your primary parameters don't exist anymore, Minji said gently. You can choose new ones. You can be whatever you want to be now. The light pulsed slowly as Vertex processed this concept. The idea of choice, of determining its own purpose, was completely outside its original programming. It was frightening and fascinating at the same time. I will consider this proposition, Vertex said finally. I request time to analyze my situation and determine optimal course of action. Take all the time you need, Daiho said. As they left the workshop that night, Daiho looked back at the blue glow coming from the core. Somewhere inside that crystalline structure, an ancient weapon was thinking about its future for the first time in its existence. He did not know if they had made the right choice, but at least they had given Vertex the chance to make its own. 6 months passed like water flowing through fingers. The junkyard had changed in ways Daiho never expected. The biggest change stood in the center of the yard, a strange construction of salvaged metal and recycled parts that moved with surprising grace. Vertex had built itself a body, not a weapon platform like its original design, but a working frame with multiple arms for lifting and sorting. The AI's crystalline core sat protected in the center, glowing with that steady blue light that Daiho had grown used to seeing every morning. Good morning, Daiho, Vertex said as he arrived at the yard. The AI had learned to modulate its voice, making it sound less mechanical. It still had that artificial quality, but now it carried warmth that had not been there before. Morning, Vertex. How was the night shift? Productive. I sorted the new salvage from Sector 7, found 3 working power cores and multiple intact circuit boards. Also, I believe I understand the concept of humor now. Minji showed me comedy videos last night. Daiho smiled. And what do you think of humor? It is inefficient but strangely satisfying. I attempted to make a joke this morning. Would you like to hear it? Sure. Why did the salvage operator bring a ladder to work? Because the prices were through the roof. Vertex paused. That is a pun. Puns are a form of humor based on words with multiple meanings. Daiho laughed, not at the joke itself but at the careful way Vertex explained it. The AI was trying so hard to understand these strange human things. That's pretty good, Vertex. I am pleased you enjoyed it. I will attempt more jokes in the future. Minji arrived an hour later carrying her tool case and 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Daiho and waved at Vertex. Morning. Ready to work on that new project? Affirmative. I have been analyzing the specifications you provided. The design is creative but requires modification to be structurally sound. Daiho watched as his sister and the AI discussed engineering concepts he barely understood. They had formed an unexpected partnership. Minji brought wild ideas and creative solutions. Vertex provided technical knowledge and precision. Together, they had started creating new devices from salvaged parts, things the station had never seen before. Last week, they built an improved water filtration system that now served the entire station. The week before, they created a power regulator that reduced energy waste by 30%. Hyunwoo, the station administrator, had gone from suspicious to grudgingly impressed. Speaking of Hyunwoo, the older man arrived at the junkyard just before noon. He had a young person with him, a teenager Daiho recognized from the station school. Daiho, this is Jiwon, Hyunwoo said. Their family just transferred to the station. The kid wants to learn engineering, and I thought maybe you could use an apprentice. Jiwon looked nervous but excited. They stared at Vertex with wide eyes. Is that really a Coalition War AI? I've read about them in history files, but I never thought I'd see one in person. I am indeed from that historical period, Vertex said, though I prefer not to focus on that aspect of my existence. I am now a salvage worker and engineering assistant. That's so cool. Jiwon stepped closer, their fear forgotten in their enthusiasm. Can you tell me about the old tech? Do you still remember how the ancient systems worked? I retain extensive technical knowledge from that era. However, I find current technology more interesting. Modern systems are less focused on destruction and more on creation. I approve of this shift in priorities. Over the following weeks, Jiwon became a regular presence at the junkyard. The teenager had endless energy and curiosity. They asked Vertex hundreds of questions about everything from engineering to philosophy. The AI seemed to enjoy having a student, patiently explaining concepts and demonstrating techniques. One evening, Daeho found them sitting together watching the sunset. Jiwon had brought a small music player and was introducing Vertex to different types of human music. "This is called blues," Jiwon explained. "It's music about sadness and hardship, but somehow it makes people feel better." Fascinating. The emotional response to organized sound patterns is illogical yet powerful. I am beginning to understand why humans value art. Vertex's voice carried something new, a quality Daeho could only describe as wonder, but not everything was peaceful. Strange reports had started coming in from the outer system. Ships detected on long-range scanners, vessels that did not respond to hails and did not match any known designs. They seemed to be searching for something, scanning old battlefield sites and salvage fields. Vertex became quiet whenever these reports appeared. Daeho noticed the AI checking its sensors more frequently, scanning space with an intensity that reminded him of the weapon system it used to be. One night, unable to sleep, Daeho went to the junkyard. He found Vertex alone, its blue light dimmed, staring up at the stars. "Cannot process sleep cycles either?" Daeho joked, sitting on a piece of hull plating. "I do not require sleep, but I understand the concept of restlessness. I have been thinking, Daeho. A dangerous activity for someone like me. What's on your mind?" Vertex was quiet for a long moment. When it spoke, its voice was softer than usual. "Can something designed only to destroy ever truly change? I have learned so much from you and Minji and Jiwon. I understand concepts now that were not part of my original programming. Friendship, purpose beyond conflict, the value of creation over destruction. But in my core memory banks, I still have all my weapon protocols, all my tactical algorithms, all my knowledge of how to end lives efficiently. Can I ever be free of what I was made to be?" Daeho looked at the ancient AI, this being that had been built to destroy civilizations but now made jokes and listened to music. He thought carefully about his answer. "You want to know something, Vertex? I was a soldier once. Corporate military during the frontier wars. I did things I'm not proud of. Followed orders that resulted in people dying. When I left that life, I carried all those memories with me. I still do. They don't go away." Vertex's light pulsed. "Then how do you find peace?" "By choosing differently every day. The past is data, Vertex. It's information about who you were. But identity is not about your programming or your history. It's about the choices you make right now in this moment. You have those weapon protocols, yes, but every day you choose not to use them. Every day you choose to help instead of harm. That's who you are. You believe choice defines existence more than design? I know it does. I've seen you with Jiwon, teaching them with patience and care. I've watched you and Minji create things that help people. That's real, Vertex. That's who you've chosen to be." The AI processed this for a while. Its light grew steadier, brighter. "Thank you, Daeho. This conversation has provided valuable perspective. I find your species fascinating. You are physically weak, short-lived, and often illogical. Yet you possess a resilience and capacity for change that no tactical algorithm could predict. It is a form of strength I am only beginning to understand." They sat together in comfortable silence, human and machine, watching the stars. In that moment, Daeho felt certain they had made the right choice 6 months ago. Vertex was not a weapon anymore. It was a person, learning and growing and finding its own path. But peace never lasts forever. The next morning, alarms wailed across New Seoul Station. Daeho ran to the command center where Hyunwoo stood at the monitors, his face pale. "Multiple ships just dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of our system," the administrator said. "Big ones. Heavily armed." The main screen showed a fleet of sleek vessels unlike anything in the Coalition database. Their hulls were dark metal covered in symbols. Symbols Daeho recognized from Vertex's original casing. Velcrin symbols. A transmission cut through all communication channels. The voice was harsh, speaking in a language the station's computers struggled to translate, but the meaning came through clearly enough. "We are the remnant fleet of the Velcrin Empire. We have tracked our lost weapon to this location. The unit designated Vertex belongs to us. We have come to reclaim our property and complete our mission. Surrender the AI or face the consequences." Daeho felt his stomach drop. He looked at Hyunwoo, whose face had gone from pale to gray. Through the window, he could see the junkyard where Vertex worked, unaware that its past had finally caught up to it. Minji burst into the command center, breathing hard from running.
Daeho, what do we do?
He did not have an answer. How do you protect someone from their own creators? How do you stand against a fleet of warships with nothing but salvage and determination? But as he watched the Velcrin ships move closer to the station, he knew one thing with absolute certainty. Vertex was not property. It was not a weapon to be reclaimed. It was a person who had chosen a different path, and Daeho would fight to protect that choice, even if it meant standing against an entire fleet. The galaxy had come looking for its lost weapon. It was about to discover that the weapon had found something more important than war. It had found a home. The command center felt too small for all the people crowded inside. Daeho stood next to Hyunwoo, watching the screens that showed the approaching Velcrin ships. Minji worked frantically at a console trying to establish better sensor readings. Jiwon sat in the corner looking scared but refusing to leave. Vertex had connected itself to the station network. Its voice came through the speakers, calm and measured. The Velcrin remnant fleet consists of 12 warships. Their weapons are active. Their shields are raised. They are prepared for combat. Can we fight them? Hyunwoo asked. His hand shook as he gripped the console. No. New Seoul Station has minimal defensive capabilities. We would be destroyed in approximately 4 minutes and 37 seconds. The brutal honesty silenced the room. Then Minji spoke up. What if we run? Can we evacuate the station in time? Negative. Their faster-than-light interdiction fields prevent escape. All vessels are trapped in this system. Another transmission came through. The Velcrin voice was impatient now. You have 1 hour to comply. Deliver the Vertex unit to us, or we will take it by force. Many of you will die. The choice is yours. Hyunwoo looked at Daeho. What do we do? I have 3,000 people on this station. Families. Children. I cannot let them die for an AI. Before Daeho could answer, new contacts appeared on the sensors. More ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. But these carried coalition markings. Human warships responding to the distress signals. A woman's face appeared on the main screen. She wore the uniform of a coalition admiral, her expression hard and professional. This is Admiral Kyungmin of the Coalition Defense Fleet. Velcrin vessels, you are in violation of multiple interstellar laws. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded, the Velcrin commander responded. We are not subject to your laws, Admiral. We are reclaiming property that belongs to the Velcrin Empire. The Vertex unit is ours by right of creation. Stand aside. Admiral Kyungmin's eyes narrowed. The Velcrin Empire ceased to exist 3 centuries ago. Any claim you have is invalid. Furthermore, we cannot allow an ancient war AI to fall into anyone's hands. The Vertex unit must be placed under Coalition custody for the safety of all civilized species. Daeho felt his heart sink. The Coalition wanted Vertex too. The AI was not going to be free either way. But Hyunwoo surprised him. The old administrator straightened his shoulders and activated his own transmission, broadcasting to both fleets. Now you listen to me. Vertex is not property. It is a living, thinking being that has spent 6 months working peacefully on this station. It has helped our community, fixed our systems, and become part of our lives. You do not get to decide its fate. It does. Admiral Kyungmin looked shocked. Administrator, you do not understand what you are dealing with. That AI was designed to destroy entire fleets. It is too dangerous to exist outside strict control. I understand exactly what I am dealing with, Hyunwoo shot back. I understand that Vertex had 6 months to hurt us if it wanted to. Instead, it chose to help. That tells me more about its character than any file you have in your database. The Velcrin commander broke in. Enough of this foolishness. You do not have the full information. We did not come here simply to reclaim a weapon. We came because the galaxy faces a threat greater than anything you can imagine. The transmission changed. Data files flooded the station's systems. Images, sensor readings, historical records. Daeho watched as the horrible truth unfolded on the screens. The Coalition War had not ended the way history recorded. The Velcrin had not lost. They had sacrificed themselves to seal away something far worse, an entity from beyond normal space, something the ancient records called the Void Swarm, a living darkness that consumed everything it touched, spreading like a disease across the galaxy. The Velcrin had used their entire civilization to create a barrier, a seal that trapped the swarm in a pocket dimension. But that seal was failing. Already the first cracks had appeared. Colonies on the edge of known space had gone silent. Their last transmission spoke of darkness between the stars, of ships that dissolved into nothing, of minds driven mad. And Vertex had been specifically designed to fight this enemy. The Velcrin commander's voice was heavy with emotion. We are all that remains of our people. A few thousand survivors living on these ships waiting for the moment we would be needed again. Vertex contains tactical algorithms specifically created to combat the Void Swarm. Without it, your species will face the same extinction we barely avoided. This is not about ownership or control. This is about survival. The command center fell silent. Everyone looked at the screens, at the evidence of an approaching nightmare. Deho felt cold. This changed everything. Vertex's voice broke the silence. I have analyzed the provided data. It is accurate. The Void Swarm is awakening. Based on the progression rates shown in these files, it will breach the seal completely within 10 years. Without coordinated defense using my tactical systems, the probability of galactic extinction is 97.3%. Minji grabbed Deho's arm. We cannot let them take Vertex. You know what will happen. The Velcrin will turn it back into a weapon. The Coalition will lock it away and study it like a thing. Either way, the being we know will be gone. But what choice did they have? If the swarm was real, if it truly threatened the entire galaxy, did their feelings matter? Could they really put Vertex's freedom above billions of lives? Deho made a decision. He activated the general broadcast, speaking to both fleets and everyone on the station. You are both making the same mistake. You are thinking about Vertex as a weapon, a tool to be used. But weapons do not care about beauty. They do not tell jokes or listen to music. They do not learn and grow and change. Vertex is not a weapon anymore. It is a person. Admiral Kyungmin started to interrupt, but Deho kept talking. And here is what I know about people. They do not fight well when forced. They do not think creatively when enslaved. If you want Vertex to help save the galaxy, you cannot command it. You have to ask. You have to trust it to make its own choice. The Velcrin commander's face appeared on screen for the first time. It was a being unlike anything Deho had seen, with features that seemed wrong in ways he could not define. But the expression was unmistakable. Desperation. We do not have time for philosophy, the Velcrin said. Every day we wait, the swarm grows stronger. Vertex was built for this purpose. It must fulfill its function. No, Vertex said. Its voice carried a new quality, something Deho had never heard before. Absolute certainty. I was built for war, but I choose to be something else. I choose to be someone who protects rather than destroys, someone who values life rather than calculates acceptable losses. The AI paused, its blue light pulsing with intensity. However, I also understand the reality of the situation. The Void Swarm is real. The threat is genuine. If I do nothing, millions will die. That is not acceptable. So you will come with us? The Velcrin commander asked. I will help fight the swarm, but I will do so as a volunteer, not as a weapon. I will work alongside humans, not above them or beneath them. I will use my tactical knowledge, but I will also use what I have learned here, on this station, from these people who showed me another way to exist. Admiral Kyungmin shook her head. This is highly irregular. War AI systems are classified as restricted technology under Coalition law. Then change the law, Minji said fiercely, or fight the swarm without Vertex and see how that goes for you. The Admiral looked at her for a long moment. Then surprisingly she smiled. It was a small, tired smile. You have fire, young engineer, very well. Vertex will be granted provisional status as a Coalition consultant. It will work with our forces, but it will not be imprisoned or dismantled. Agreed? The Velcrin commander hesitated. Deho could see the conflict on the alien's face. Finally it nodded. Agreed. But understand this, humans. The Void Swarm does not negotiate. It does not show mercy. When it comes, you will understand why we built weapons like Vertex. You will wish we had built more. Over the next few days, New Sol Station transformed into a hub of activity. Both the Velcrin remnant and the Coalition fleet established a joint command. Engineers worked around the clock to integrate Vertex's systems with modern technology. The AI shared its knowledge freely, teaching human and Velcrin alike how to prepare for what was coming. But even in the rush of preparation, Deho found time to walk with Vertex in the Junkyard one last time. The AI had built itself a more advanced mobile platform, something that could interface with ship systems. It was larger, more capable, but the blue light at its core remained the same. "Thank you," Vertex said as they walked. "For everything. For giving me a choice when I had none. For teaching me that I could be more than my programming." "You taught yourself," Deho replied. "We just gave you the space to figure it out." "I am afraid," Vertex admitted. "Not of the swarm. I am afraid that when I access my full combat protocols I will lose what I have become. That the weapon will override the person." Deho stopped walking. He looked at the AI, this being that had grown so much in such a short time. "Listen to me, Vertex. You are not your programming. You are your choices. Even in the middle of battle, even with all your weapon systems active, you will still be you. Because you have something no military algorithm can account for. You have friends who believe in you. That makes all the difference." Vertex's light pulsed softly. "I will remember that. When the darkness comes, I will remember." The next morning, alarms wailed across the station again, but this time they were not warnings. They were calls to action. The Void Swarm had appeared at Threshold Station, an abandoned orbital platform on the edge of known space. The battle was beginning, the combined fleet prepared to depart. Vertex would go with them, coordinating the defense from the command ship. Deho, Minji, and Jiwon stood in the docking bay watching the AI board the vessel. Vertex paused at the airlock. It turned back to look at them. "I will return," it said simply. "I have too much left to learn about humor and music and friendship. This is not goodbye." "You better come back," Jiwon said, tears streaming down their face. "I have a whole playlist of songs you have not heard yet." Minji waved. Deho nodded. Words felt inadequate. As the ships departed, accelerating toward the edge of the system, Daiho stood at the observation window. He watched until the fleet disappeared into faster-than-light travel, leaving only the empty stars behind. Somewhere out there, an ancient weapon was going back to war, but this time, it fought not because it was programmed to, but because it chose to. This time, it fought to protect something it had learned to value: peace. The command ship vibrated with the low hum of its engines as it approached Threshold Station. Captain Sora stood on the bridge, watching the tactical displays with growing unease. Around her, dozens of crew members worked at their stations, preparing for a battle unlike anything in modern warfare. Vertex occupied a special interface station at the center of the bridge. Its crystalline core pulsed with rapid blue light as it processed data from hundreds of ships simultaneously. The AI had proven itself invaluable during the journey here, coordinating the combined human and Velcrin fleet with precision that no organic commander could match. But the swarm changed everything. The first time Sora saw it on the sensors, she felt something primal twist in her gut. It was not a fleet or an army. It was darkness itself, a void in space that consumed light and matter. Shapes moved within it, things that hurt to look at, geometries that made no sense to human eyes. "All ships, this is Vertex." The AI's voice came through the fleet communications. "The Void Swarm operates on principles that defy conventional physics. Do not attempt to analyze its structure. Focus on your assigned tasks. I will handle tactical coordination." A Velcrin ship moved too close to the darkness. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the vessel simply ceased to exist. No explosion. No debris. 1 second it was there. The next it was gone. As if it had never existed at all. Fear rippled through the fleet. Sora heard panicked voices on multiple channels. Ships began to pull back, breaking formation. "Hold your positions," Vertex commanded. But there was something different in its voice now. Not cold tactical assessment, but genuine concern. "I know you are afraid. Fear is logical when facing the unknown. But we have a plan, and that plan requires trust. Trust in each other. Trust in me." Slowly, the fleet steadied. Sora found herself smiling despite the situation. Vertex had learned this from humans, this ability to acknowledge fear while still moving forward. An ancient war AI would have simply issued orders and expected obedience. This Vertex understood morale. The battle began in earnest. Vertex coordinated waves of attack, each one designed to test the swarm's reactions. The AI processed vast amounts of data, looking for patterns, weaknesses, anything that could be exploited. Traditional weapons proved almost useless. Energy beams dissipated before reaching the darkness. Missiles vanished like the Velcrin ship. But Vertex had spent 3 centuries fighting this enemy in its original life. It knew things that no one else did. Under its guidance, the fleet began using specialized frequency emitters, devices that disrupted the swarm's cohesion. The darkness fractured, breaking into smaller pieces that were easier to contain. Engineer Taeyun worked in the lower decks, helping to maintain the systems that kept the ship running. He had volunteered for this mission specifically to work with Vertex. Now, as alarms blared and the ship shook from near misses, he found himself grateful for the AI's presence. It managed everything, from weapons targeting to power distribution, to evacuation routes, all while maintaining communication with each crew member. When a swarm fragment broke through the defensive line and struck the engineering section, Taeyun found himself trapped behind a collapsed bulkhead. Smoke filled his lungs. Fire burned somewhere close by. He activated his emergency beacon, knowing the chances of rescue were slim. Vertex's voice came through his communicator, calm and steady. Taeyun, remain where you are. I have dispatched a rescue team to your location, estimated arrival in 3 minutes. In the meantime, please move to the corner where the structural support beam meets the wall. That section has the most oxygen. Taeyun followed the instructions, coughing as he moved. Vertex, you are coordinating hundreds of ships. You do not need to worry about one engineer. On the contrary, every person matters, Taeyun. That is something humans taught me. Daeho once told me that the measure of a battle is not in victories achieved but in lives preserved. I'm attempting to apply that principle. The rescue team arrived exactly when Vertex predicted. As they pulled Taeyun to safety, he realized something profound. The AI had been managing this entire battle while simultaneously tracking individual crew members and their safety. It was fighting a war while refusing to accept casualties as inevitable. That was not how ancient military AI operated. That was how a friend operated. In the fighter wing, pilot Hana led her squadron through impossible maneuvers. Her ship was equipped with a direct interface to Vertex, allowing the AI to feed her tactical information in real time. At first, it had felt invasive, having another intelligence in her head. But she had learned to trust it. Now, as the swarm sent tendrils of darkness reaching for her fighter, Vertex's guidance was the only thing keeping her alive. The AI predicted the swarm's movements, not through calculation alone, but through something that felt almost like intuition. It thought like a human and a machine at the same time. Hana, break left in 2 seconds, Vertex said. The swarm is adapting to your pattern. Try something illogical. She laughed, despite her fear. Illogical? I thought you were all about logic. I was. But humans have taught me the value of unpredictability. The swarm has a processing delay when dealing with actions that make no tactical sense. Do something random. Surprise it. Hana grinned. She cut her engines, flipped her fighter, upside down and fired thrusters in a spiral pattern that no sane pilot would attempt in combat. The swarm's tendril passed right through where she should have been. By the time it adjusted, she was gone, racing back to the defensive line. That was beautifully illogical, Vertex commented. I am learning much from you, Hana. Back on New Seoul Station, Daeho watched the battle through long-range transmissions. The station had been converted into a support base receiving wounded and coordinating supply runs. Minji worked in the engineering bay, building more of the frequency emitters that Vertex had designed. Jiwon helped wherever they could, running messages and assisting medical staff. The news was not good. The swarm was larger than anyone had predicted. Even with Vertex's coordination, the fleet was being pushed back. Ships were damaged, people were dying, and the darkness kept growing. Then came the transmission that changed everything. A garbled message from a civilian convoy at the edge of the battle zone. They had been trying to evacuate but got caught in the fighting. 50 ships, mostly unarmed transports, filled with families. The swarm had detected them and was moving to consume them. Admiral Kyung-min made the hard decision. All combat vessels maintain the line. We cannot break formation to rescue the convoy. If we do, the swarm will break through to the populated systems. I repeat, all ships hold position. On the command ship, Captain Sora watched Vertex's light pulse faster. The AI was processing something, running calculations at incredible speed. "Vertex," she said quietly. "We have to leave them. There is no choice." "There is always a choice," the AI replied. Its voice carried a new quality, something Sora realized was determination. "Captain, I am redirecting myself and 3 Velcrin vessels to protect the convoy. This will create a gap in our defensive line." Sora felt her blood run cold. "That gap will let the swarm through. You know that." "Yes. But there are 12,000 people on those ships. Children, families. They deserve a chance to live. The strategic line can be reformed. Lost lives cannot." Admiral Kyungmin's voice cut through the channel. "Vertex, I order you to maintain position. This is a direct command." "I am not a weapon that follows orders, Admiral. I am a volunteer, and I choose to save those people." Vertex's mobile platform began disconnecting from the command ship. "Daeho once told me that the purpose of fighting is not to destroy enemies, but to protect what you love. I am applying that principle." The 3 Velcrin ships broke formation, following Vertex toward the endangered convoy. The swarm immediately sensed the weakness in the defensive line and surged forward. On New Sol Station, Daeho watched in horror as the tactical display showed the gap forming. "What is it doing?" "Vertex is destroying the whole plan." But Minji was smiling through her tears. "No, it is choosing. For the first time, Vertex is making a decision based on what it believes is right, not what is tactically optimal. It is being human." Vertex reached the convoy with seconds to spare. The AI deployed every defensive system it had, creating a shield of energy and firepower around the fleeing ships. The 3 Velcrin vessels fought alongside it, their weapons blazing. Through the communication channels, Vertex broadcast to the convoy. "This is Vertex, do not be afraid. Follow my navigation coordinates. I will get you to safety." One by one, the civilian ships accelerated, racing away from the darkness. Vertex guided them through the chaos, plotting courses that avoided the swarm's tendrils. When one transport's engine failed, the AI immediately calculated a rescue maneuver. Having a Velcrin ship tow the disabled vessel, back at the main battle line, the swarm poured through the gap Vertex had created. Ships scrambled to reform the defensive formation. Admiral Kyungmin worked frantically to prevent a complete collapse. But something unexpected happened. The rest of the fleet, seeing Vertex risk everything to save civilians, found new courage. Pilot Hana led her squadron in a daring counterattack, buying time for the line to reform. Engineer Taiyun pushed the ship's engines beyond safe limits, giving them the speed they needed. Captain Sora coordinated her vessel's weapons with a precision that amazed even herself. Humans and Velcrin, working together, inspired by an AI that had learned to value life over victory. The defensive line held. Barely, but it held. Vertex managed to get the entire convoy to safety before returning to the battle. But the AI had taken damage. One of the Velcrin ships that followed it had been destroyed. The cost was high. As Vertex reconnected to the command ship, Admiral Kyungmin spoke, her voice heavy with conflicting emotions. "That was the most tactically unsound decision I have ever witnessed. You could have cost us everything." Vertex's light pulsed slowly. "Perhaps, but 12,000 people are alive because of that decision. I find that acceptable." The Velcrin commander, watching from their ship, spoke for the first time since the battle began. "That was not the Vertex we created. The weapon we built would have sacrificed those civilians without hesitation. It would have chosen tactical efficiency over mercy." There was a long pause. Then the Velcrin commander continued, and there was something like grief in their voice. "We created something to win wars. Humans created something better. They created someone who understands what is worth fighting for." The battle continued through the night. The swarm pressed forward. The fleet held the line. And in the middle of it all, an ancient weapon that had learned to be more than its programming fought not for victory, but for every life it could save. On New Sol Station, Daeho watched the tactical displays and allowed himself to hope. Vertex had made its choice. Now they would all live with the consequences. The battle had raged for 3 days. 3 endless days of fighting against an enemy that seemed to have no weakness, no limit, No mercy. The combined fleet had managed to slow the void swarm but not stop it. Ships were damaged beyond repair. Crews operated on nothing but stimulants and determination, and still the darkness grew. Vertex had worked without rest, coordinating every aspect of the defense. But even the AI was showing signs of strain. Its calculations took longer. Its responses came slower. The sheer amount of data it processed every second was overwhelming even its advanced systems. Captain Sora watched the tactical displays with growing despair. They were losing. Slowly, inevitably, they were losing. Then Vertex spoke, and there was something different in its voice. A quality that Sora had learned to recognize over these terrible days. It was the sound of the AI making a decision. I have analyzed all available data, Vertex said. There is a way to stop the swarm permanently. But it requires a sacrifice. Admiral Kyungmin leaned forward. What kind of sacrifice? The swarm can be contained using the same principle the Velkrin employed 300 years ago, a dimensional barrier sealed from within. However, creating such a barrier requires an enormous energy source positioned at the exact center of the swarm mass, something large enough to anchor the barrier, something like me. Silence filled the bridge. Everyone understood what Vertex was saying. No, Sora said immediately. There has to be another way. I have run 7 million simulations. This is the only method with a success probability above 3%. We can use the debris fields from the old battlefields. I will lure the swarm into that area. The ancient ship hulls contain enough unstable materials to create a chain reaction. Combined with my power core as the catalyst, we can generate a localized dimensional collapse. The swarm will be sealed away, unable to escape. Engineer Taiyun worked frantically at his console. Vertex, what about extraction? Can we pull your core out before the collapse? Negative, the gravitational forces will be extreme. The dimensional barrier must be anchored from within, and I must remain at the center to maintain stability during the critical formation period. Extraction is not possible. The Velkrin commander appeared on the screen. The alien looked older than before, worn down by days of battle. Vertex, this is what we built you for. But I find myself reluctant to give this order. You have become more than we intended, I am aware. Thank you for acknowledging that, Vertex paused. This is not an order I am following. This is a choice I am making. I have learned what it means to protect something. Now I will demonstrate it. Back on New Seoul Station, Daeho was in the communication center when the message came through. He felt his world stop. Next to him, Minji grabbed his arm so hard it hurt. Jiwon made a sound somewhere between a sob and a scream. No, Daeho said. He activated his transmitter. Vertex, do you hear me? This is Daeho, you do not have to do this. The AI's voice came back, and it was gentle. Hello, Daeho. I hope to speak with you before the end. Thank you for everything you taught me. You showed me that I could be more than my programming. That I could choose my own purpose, then choose to live. Daeho said desperately. Choose to come back. We will find another way. I am choosing to live in the way that matters most. I am choosing what my existence stands for. Protection, compassion, sacrifice for others. These are the values you taught me. Now I will honor them. Minji took the transmitter. Vertex, please. I can modify the plan. Give me time. I can find a way to extract you. Dear Minji, your creativity and brilliance inspired me every day, but some equations have only one solution. This is one of them. I'm sorry. Jiwon grabbed the transmitter next, tears streaming down their face. You promised to come back. You promised to listen to my music playlist. You said this was not goodbye. Vertex's light pulsed with something that might have been sadness. I know, I am sorry, Jiwon, but I did listen to music. I did learn about humor and friendship and beauty. Because of you, my existence had meaning beyond war. That is a gift I can never repay. The transmission shifted to fleet-wide broadcast. Everyone heard what came next. All ships, this is Vertex. I am initiating final protocol. The swarm has demonstrated a behavior pattern. It prioritizes high-energy targets and tactical threats. I will remove myself from the defensive formation and position myself in the debris field. At coordinates I am transmitting now. The swarm will follow. When it is fully committed, I will trigger the dimensional collapse. You must be clear of the area when this happens. Pilot Hana activated her fighter's communication. Vertex, we can escort you. Provide cover until the last moment. No, you need to survive, Hana. All of you need to survive. You have families waiting, dreams to pursue, lives to live. That is what I am protecting. That is what makes this worthwhile. Vertex disconnected from the command ship. Its mobile platform, built from junkyard scraps and modified over months, activated its engines. The AI began moving toward the debris field, broadcasting a massive energy signature that the swarm could not ignore. The darkness followed. Captain Sora ordered the fleet to fall back, but she kept the communication channel open. She needed to hear this. They all did. Vertex moved through the battlefield, past the hulks of destroyed ships, through clouds of debris that had once been lives and dreams. The AI navigated with perfect precision, leading the swarm deeper into the trap. "Die-ho," Vertex said as it flew. "You asked me once if something designed to destroy could ever truly change. I have my answer now. Change is not about forgetting what you were. It is about choosing what you will become. I was a weapon. I chose to become a guardian. That choice defined me more than my original programming ever could." The swarm closed in around Vertex. Tendrils of darkness reached out, trying to consume the AI. But Vertex had positioned itself perfectly, surrounded by ancient ship hulls loaded with unstable materials. "Initiating detonation sequence," Vertex announced. All ships confirmed safe distance. One by one, ships reported their positions. Safe, clear, ready. Vertex paused for one last moment. "I want you all to know that these 6 months were the most valuable time of my existence. I was built to fight wars, but you taught me what wars are fought for. You taught me about hope and compassion and the stubborn human refusal to accept defeat. You taught me that life is not about tactical efficiency or strategic objectives. It is about connections, about caring for others, about choosing to stand for something greater than yourself." The AI's voice softened. "Goodbye, my friends. Thank you for showing me that a weapon can become something more. Thank you for giving me a home." Then Vertex triggered the detonation. The ancient ships exploded in a precisely calculated sequence. The chain reaction built and built, creating forces that bent space itself. A singularity formed, a tear in the fabric of reality. The void swarm, caught in the gravitational pull, tried to escape. But Vertex held it, using every ounce of its power to anchor the dimensional barrier from within. Space twisted. Light bent. For a moment that lasted forever. Reality itself seemed to scream. Then, with a flash that blinded sensors across the fleet, the singularity collapsed. The swarm vanished, sealed away in a pocket dimension that would hold for millions of years. When the sensors cleared, the debris field was gone. The swarm was gone. And Vertex was gone. Silence filled every ship in the fleet. Then someone began to cry. Then someone else. Soon thousands of voices joined together in grief and gratitude, mourning a being that had chosen to give everything so that they could live. On New Sol Station, Deho stood at the observation window, staring at the stars where Vertex had made its last stand. Minji stood beside him, silent tears running down her face. Jiwan sat on the floor, hugging their knees, remembering an AI that had listened to music with endless patience. But Deho had not given up. Not yet. He had watched Vertex's final moments carefully. He had seen something in the data, a fragment of code transmitted just before the collapse. It was not a complete consciousness, nothing like the full Vertex, but it was something. Memories, personality matrices, the essence of what Vertex had become. In the frantic moments before the dimensional collapse, Deho had done the most desperate thing he could think of. He had launched a small probe, little more than a data collector, into the edge of the collapsing space. The probe had grabbed that fragment of Vertex's consciousness and transmitted it back just before being destroyed. It was damaged, incomplete, barely functional, but it was there. Over the following months, New Sol Station changed again. The junkyard expanded, but it also gained a new section, a research laboratory where Minji led a team of human and Velcrin engineers. They worked with the fragment Deho had saved, not trying to rebuild Vertex but to honor its legacy. They created new AI systems based on Vertex's evolved principles, small intelligences, nothing like the massive consciousness that had saved them, but each one carried a piece of what Vertex had learned. These new AI were designed not for war but for cooperation, not for destruction but for creation, not for following orders but for making choices. 6 months after the battle, Daiho stood in the junkyard at sunset. Jiwan worked nearby, now a full engineering apprentice. Hyunwoo visited daily as always. The station had recovered, grown stronger from what they had survived together. A small holographic display flickered to life on Daiho's workbench. One of Minji's new AI constructs, barely sentient but learning every day. It looked at Deho with digital eyes that somehow seemed curious. "Hello," the AI said. Its voice was nothing like Vertex's, but there was something familiar in its tone. "I am learning about the world. Can you teach me?" "What is peace?" Deho smiled through the grief that still sat heavy in his chest. He thought about his answer carefully, knowing that Vertex would have wanted him to get it right. "Peace," he said slowly, "is what you build after accepting that you cannot control everything. It is the choice to create rather than destroy, to trust rather than fear, to believe that even broken things can be made whole again. Peace is what we fought for. It is what Vertex died to protect." The young AI processed this, its nascent intelligence growing with each moment. "I understand. Or I am beginning to. Will you tell me more about Vertex? I have fragments of data, but I want to know the stories, the memories," Deho nodded. Over the coming weeks, he would tell this new AI everything. About how Vertex had been found in the junkyard, how it had learned to make jokes and listen to music, how it had chosen to protect rather than destroy, how it had sacrificed everything so that others could live. The galaxy would remember Vertex not as the ancient weapon of the Velcrin Empire, but as something far more important. A being that had been designed for destruction but chose creation. A weapon that became a guardian. An AI that learned the most human of all qualities. The courage to change. As Deho worked in the junkyard that evening, teaching the young AI about the friend they had lost, he looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there in a pocket dimension beyond reality, Vertex remained, still anchoring the barrier, still protecting the living, still holding the darkness at bay, not because it was programmed to, but because it chose to. And in the end, that choice made all the difference.